A huge source of funds is the reordering of government priorities away from military spending.
The key to the policies we want lies in shifting some of the funding from military to domestic programs.
The Council for a Livable World has done more damage to the US military than most armies could ever dream of.
Back when we were battling the Soviets, they were among the Soviets' most reliable propaganda allies here in the United States.
Coincidentally, Democratic Socialists of America is also very strong inside the Council for a Livable World. Longtime Council Director Jerome Grossman was close to Boston Democratic Socialists of America and was a brother-in-law of New York DSA comrade Victor Siddell. The Council's Political Action Committee, Peace PAC, was run by David Bonnier, once second-ranked Democrat in the House of Representatives and now a dues-paying DSA member. The Council's current director is DSA-endorsed former Massachusetts Congressman John Tierney. The Council for a Livable World was founded in 1962 by Leo Szilard, a supporter of the failed Hungarian Communist Revolution of 1919. Leo Szilard fled to the United States, where he became a prominent nuclear physicist and a leader of the Manhattan Project, which created the first US atomic bomb. The council began modestly. It funded socialist-leaning Senate candidates in low-budget elections in small states. These grateful new senators would then be lobbied by the council to vote to reduce US military spending and cut nuclear arms programs at every possible opportunity.
Council for a Livable World has been endorsing candidates since 1962. We endorse in races where the person we endorse has a strong chance of winning, has a good positions on our issues, and is running against someone whose positions we don't agree with.
So tell me how the Council for a Livable World aided the Soviet cause.
Well, first of all, they had about a 100-degree correlation between their line and the Soviet line, and always being a reliable, quote-unquote, neutral peace activist voice out there to blast any efforts to improve American defense and to pretty much demand everything that the Soviets were demanding without sounding like they were Soviet agents.
In 50 years, the council has funded over 200 Congress members.
I do want to thank the Council for a Livable World.
And 130 senators, including over 40 of the current Democratic delegation.
And I want to thank so much the supporters of Council for a Livable World.
I'm very proud to have the support of the Council for a Livable World.
Thank you to the Council for being such a great friend to me from the very beginning.
Thank you for the invaluable support you provide to candidates like me.
The Council for a Livable World has funded Senators Tim Kaine, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden.
My ties to the Council run long and deep, stretching way back to my first campaign for the United States Senate. That help has continued throughout my entire career, especially when I was chairman of the United States Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And it continues to this very day.
Now it's much more mainstream with Obama, Clinton, Biden, those policies. Council for a Livable World you can't dismiss it as a radical group anymore because it's now center-left, whereas before it had been far-left, even though it hasn't changed its basic views.
In 1994, former Soviet KGB officer Pavel Sudoplatov spilled the beans on Council for a Livable World founder Leo Szilard. Sudoplatov revealed that Leo Szilard had been a fully recruited Soviet agent. Stalin's spy chief Lavrenti Beria had personally ordered that Leo Szilard's political influence was to be exploited to communist advantage. Leo Szilard's mission was to eliminate America's nuclear superiority over the Soviet Union.
So for a group like the Council for a Livable World to exist for decades, scrupulously following the Soviet line, then to have its founder unmasked as a controlled Soviet agent by one of the control officers, that changes the picture completely.
The Council for a Livable World has been able to influence US defense policies for decades. The Council also claims to have influenced several major arms limitation treaties signed with the Soviet Union or Russia, all of which benefited Moscow and damaged the United States. But is this just boasting? How successful has the Council for a Livable World actually been?
From ratifying the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty and START to establishing a nuclear testing moratorium here at home, to the Chemical Weapons Convention, and to this very day, your support and guidance during our recent effort to ratify New START.
Never in my lifetime did I believe I would witness this great country of ours being withdrawn from our world leadership role and taken down by our own administration.
The American military of today is not the American military of the first Persian Gulf War. People remember how we managed to move vast numbers of troops and material and supplies. We were using the Ronald Reagan legacy of our preparedness to prosecute a World War III in NATO Europe, and we actually used it during the first Persian Gulf War. And, it was so impressive, and these advanced technologies were so impressive. And most Americans today still think, I believe, that we have those kinds of capabilities, but we don't.
You're decimating our capability, so that today we're winding up with the smallest army prior to World War II, the smallest Navy prior to World War I. And just to give you an example of what we're competing against, the Chinese are building 60 ships a year. We're building 10, 9.
Our Navy is smaller now than any time since 1917. Our Air Force is older and smaller than any time since it was founded in 1947.
Well, Governor, we also have fewer horses and bayonets.
We can let the Russians build up their forces. We can cut ours back in Europe because America has such overwhelming nuclear superiority that the conventional forces are really secondary.
That used to be the argument. And there was a time in the Cold War, early in the Cold War, before we had the nuclear arms race and they caught up to us, where that was true. If you count the nuclear warheads the way the Obama administration does, they try to make it sound like parity, but they're leaving out a whole category of Russian nuclear weapons in order to do that. Mostly what people read about in the newspapers these days is the strategic nuclear balance, the number of weapons we have on our long-range nuclear missiles and bombers. And there's a treaty, the START Treaty, Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. And under the terms of that treaty, we do still have parity in terms of the strategic weapons. We've got 1,500, they've got 1,500. However, they never talk about the tactical nuclear balance. And if you take the lowest numbers for their tactical nuclear arsenal, it's 3,000 weapons today. It could be as high as 20,000. But if you take the lowest number, 3,000, all right? 3,000 tactical nuclear weapons, plus the 1,500 long-range strategic nuclear weapons, is 4,500 nuclear weapons. We've got 1,500 long-range strategic weapons and 200 obsolete tactical nuclear. I hope we still have them.
Just 200.
200 are left. And they're just old gravity bombs that are bunkered in West Germany, The Russians even know exactly where they are. So that's 1,700 nuclear weapons in the overall nuclear balance versus 4,500. They have an overwhelming advantage in the overall nuclear balance numerically and technologically because their strategic weapons, too, are brand new, they're advanced strategic weapons, whereas our strategic weapons, those long-range weapons, there are many experts who wonder if we actually have a nuclear deterrent anymore. The missiles and the weapons themselves are much older than the flight crews that have to maintain these weapons.
Republican candidates who keep saying the incompetency of the Obama administration is unbelievable. Well, let me tell you, they're not incompetent at all. They have a strategy. They have executed it brilliantly.